Hello, Marjorie. Good to see you. Goodness me. And Tammy. Hi. Good to see you both. Right. Lovely. Nice that you're both there. I think you were probably, I don't know whether I was live before I realized it or not, but what the heck. Hey, good to see you. So now one of the things I've decided I was going to do this week was to actually not say hello to everybody as you join. It's incredibly tempting and I would love to, but I'm trying not to be rude. Excellent. I'm just going to see how it goes, and it might just trip me up even more than all of those comments and saying hello. So do say hi and whatever as you join. We have no idea how it goes, do we really? But there we go. I had several comments last time about the fact that I was just wandering off so much. But, you know, last time I was so surprised by the amount of people we had online that I was genuinely quite overwhelmed by it. So I was saying hello all the time. I do indeed. I do really, really want to. But you're all there. Anyway, look, the point is, do stick in the questions and comments, have a chat amongst yourselves as well as we go through this. If I don't say hello to everybody, it means that we might get through the content a little bit quicker. I will, you know, I am trying to edit these down and to put them up online, but it all takes time and it's not like I've got a load of time. So do chat amongst yourselves. If you want to ask me a specific question at any point, and welcome, you know, I welcome any of the questions because inevitably they fit in somewhere along the line, don't they? But just put at Tim Walter and I can see it really nice and clear in the chat comment. Okay. So I don't know about you, but these days just whiz past, and I thought, you know, I'm looking forward to the time when actually I can be really nice and relaxed and chilled as we come into this 3:30 slot, but not happening so far. Running around like an idiot today I was. So there we go. So what we want to talk about a bit today is we're going to be kind of carrying on from where we were last week, which is really about dowsing, well-being, spirit of place, and more about this whole kind of concept of fear and how that relates to our well-being, and you know, why do we get so fearful about these things? We'll maybe touch on that. That's the intention anyway. Let's see how it goes. JF, you missed my introduction. I'm not ignoring you, mate. So see, it's no good, is it? I just have to say hello. I have to say hello to you all. I have to. Right. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us. So, yeah, right. So, moving on from last week, right? I mean, it was a really interesting session last week, and we had a lot of information to get through and a lot of questions and queries that were kind of all sitting amongst this overriding kind of, you know, hi, Melissa. This overriding sort of heading of metaphysics, I suppose. Now, you know, some points this morning, I've been emailing a guy called Paul Gehry, who, if any of you have read the Spirit and Earth book, here we go, the usual weekly plug for Spirit and Earth. Pick it up from Amazon if it appeals. Paul did a little piece in there for us. Paul is now, what is he? What's the neuro? I've forgotten. I'm all over the place today. He is. Hello, Billy. He works in hospitals. He's the guy that if you went to go and see, if you needed a brain scan, he would be the guy that would be there gently putting all the wires in place, and he operates the machinery for doing that. Neurophysiologist. A clinical neurophysiologist, I think it's called. And I've been exchanging emails with him today, and he, you know, like a lot of us, is really interested and fascinated by the way that we all perceive the reality differently. And one of the things that was raised was about EMF, and I said, well, there's, you know, people that are EMF sensitive. And I've come across a few of those in the house healing work. And he came back with like, well, no, nobody's EMF sensitive. He put it under a different label. which was, and I'm not dissing him or anything like that, it's just really interesting the way that we each have different labels and different ways of explaining the ways that fundamentally we respond to situations or things. So, yeah, he says he sees many patients with functional neurological disease. They can have epileptic type attacks, be paralysis, or appear blind, all with no organic pathology. In other words, there's nothing physically wrong with them. EMF sensitive people, he says, are in that group, which means that there's nothing physically, in his terms, wrong with the person, but the person is very, very acutely aware of EMF radiation, right? So it's an interesting one because it's to me, it doesn't alter the fact that some people are incredibly conscious and aware of the EMF issues. And I said to him, that was sort of leading up to that, you know, even if he didn't agree with EMF sensitivity as a kind of a concept, which is really what he's saying, he doesn't agree with that as a concept. He says it's just categorized into something else. People are susceptible to it. They believe they're susceptible to it, and those symptoms arrive. Now, actually, there's a good, not a good friend of mine, somebody I know who's suffering from cancer right now, and his symptoms fall in line with chronic EMF exposure. Now, of course, in this sense, whenever we're talking about EMF in this sort of sense, then we're talking about electromagnetic frequencies from things like cell phones, transmitter masts, you know, Wi-Fi, all this sort of thing. Electromagnetic frequencies actually are the basis on which the reality is built. So it's not all EMF in that sense, but we're talking about those specifics that we kind of feel are bad rather than those sort of vibrations that we feel are good. But this guy, this friend of mine, this acquaintance, he always believed that he was EMF sensitive. And the key to all of this is his belief. You know, this has come as no surprise to you. It's the belief that instills the symptoms within the physical body. Okay, and so, I mean, we're always talking about the same sort of things each week here. So many of you that are regulars won't be surprised by us talking necessarily about this. But it's so important that we reiterate this, you know, and we come at it each week from a slightly different angle and different content and different ways of kind of enabling people to join the dots. I mean, there's 23 of you on the session now. Some of you have been here before. Most of you, I think, have been here before. It's good to see you all. You know, sometimes it will take a few times of listening to some of this stuff or exchanging a comment between you there on the chat for a penny to drop, for the dots that in your knowledge already to join up and kind of, oh yeah, okay, I understand, I get it. And all of this is really very much about encouraging you to think and apply to what is mentioned in these sessions in your own lives. And really, when I'm working with people on a house healing basis, you know, it's not about me going in and saying, you know, wonderful, the management has now sorted your problem. I mean, obviously, that's part of the process, is that we're getting the management involved with the subtle energies and they're doing the healing work. I mean, it is healing because I don't know any other word to describe it with. So they're doing the healing work, right? But also the process is about the individual client shifting their perspective on their understanding of their circumstance and stepping into their own power. Now, you'll remember last week that we had the lady who was complaining about spirit. I'll come to that in 1 second. I'm going to answer this question from Billy. Chicken and egg, I get to where you're coming from, but it could be argued the other way around. You have the symptoms and only later find out what may be triggering it. Yeah, I mean, exactly. There is no specific order, is there, Billy? And again, this is one of the things that we'll maybe touch on later on, cause and effect. You know, and I think we kind of covered this last time as well. about the fact that any given situation at any point in time is really just that complete combination of all aspects that are involved at all levels at that moment. From the spiritual perspective, obviously, if we are unwell, like my dear, this acquaintance, he was diagnosed and then found out that the possible cause, or the common cause of it, was EMF exposure. So he wasn't, he didn't consciously make himself unwell, and he would argue, of course, that he didn't make himself unwell. He would argue, of course, that circumstance, the environment, made him unwell. I mean, he's a very, very spiritual guy. So where do we put the cause and effect? Environment makes the person unwell, or does the person create the environment that then makes them unwell, or does where does it go? Again, I'm smiling. It's not a laughing matter by any means, and the point is that it is actually really important that we allow ourselves to understand the significance of our beliefs and the power of our mind over the physical world. Whether or not that is perceived power of mind, aspects of it, because we can't ignore the known psychology of the way that our brains interpret the information that we receive that makes up our world. We can't ignore that. We can't ignore all the cognitive biases that we're all subjected to. That is the basis from which we have developed coping mechanisms, and therefore we expect to see the world reflected in a certain way due to those coping mechanisms, the cognitive bias, the bias of our brain, the way it works. Right? So we can't ignore the psychology. We can't ignore the physiology, the way the brain, the body is physically functioning. We can't ignore the environment as an external factor. And likewise, we can't ignore the power of the perception of the mind as an electrical item. Okay? Oh, right. Anyway, I'm coming back to the lady that we had last time, who was talking about the fact that she had made some progress with talking to Spirit of Place. Bless her. But then discovered that actually she was getting quite spooked by the spirits that she had made contact with, the voices. As she was dowsing, she actually got basically she was told by one of them that she was going to die the next day. Now that's a terrifying circumstance. We talked about it last time. If you want to know more about that, then either explore the live recording from last week, or hopefully I will pop that into an edited version, but don't hold your breath on when that goes up. So the thing is, I had an email from that lady. Let me just find it here. A message on Facebook, and now bless her, she actually on Saturday night she got quite stressed by these spirits, and she was quite desperate. I didn't get that message until late on Sunday, so she sent me a stressed message on Saturday night, and then fortunately on Sunday, I'm going to just read you what she says. It's a very short sentence. She says, "I've come to understand this is all illusory." So in other words, her perception of these spirits, she accepts there is an illusory aspect to it. "I've come to understand this is all illusory. It's my ego and imagination playing tricks on me. I really like that because it relieves me from anguish and allows me to put all of this behind me and choose a different outcome." Now, the reason I'm reading that is because the important aspect to this, because it doesn't actually, from my point of view, now you guys have to make up your own minds how you perceive what you perceive, right? So when you're accessing the subtle realms, you have to decide what you're accessing and how do you want to deal with whatever information and the exchange that takes place at those moments. We'll come back to that again in a second, but the reason I'm saying this is because what this lady has discovered in this process is her power. because she has made the choice. And this is exactly the nub of it. This is actually a really fundamental and very major step for her and her psyche, if you like. Okay, so because she has decided that this is the way she's going to relate to it. She is going to say, okay, this stuff that is happening is my imagination, and it's coming from an ego point of view. And by doing that, the activity she shifts her perspective on whatever the activity was, and it dissipates, right? In her case. And she steps into her power because she says, that is my decision. That is what I am going to do. It's not where she was, which was like, I don't know what to do. This is terrifying. The fear is a really self-perpetuating thing anyway, because that really exasperates the way that you perceive any kind of infringement from the subtle realms that you don't quite understand and you're not sure about. So fear is a really unpleasant aspect that you don't really want to be feeding in any of this work. Okay, I mean, yeah. So this is why you get that classic saying, the sort of, it's a bit trite really, but the only thing to fear is fear itself. And in many senses, that's actually true. So what I'm getting at is that really what we're trying to do here, the path to a well-being, to a good foundation of well-being, is to understand your power. And part of understanding your power is to appreciate the choices that you have. And in all circumstances, you have choices. Exactly, Kimberly. Great, yeah. Royken, you missed the intro. It's good to see you there. I'm trying to avoid saying hello to everybody. Jim, what did you get? Just to see how it goes. Jim. I started dowsing a few months ago, and since then a lot has opened up to me. How do I gain more confidence in what I am seeing, feeling, and all that is happening to me? Well, Jim, it is really only practice. And thank you for that question. We'll come back to that. We'll work on that, Jim, as we just go through here now, right? Because this was one of the other comments that I wanted to kind of talk about today, which was actually from one of my mentoring clients. So I do one-to-one mentoring. Some of you will know that I did say that I was trying to get together an online course about the housing, and that really will be specifically for therapists and people wanting to put in the actual nuts and bolts technique into their lives to assist them in their therapy work or whatever, but at that level, right? So it's not for everybody. The fact is that I've had to put that to one side. I want to concentrate on the book that I'm writing at the moment. Can't do everything. So, but anyway, I'm doing one-to-one mentoring. If anybody on playback or whatever is interested, hello, amazing MD. Hello, somewhat. Okay. Sorry, I said hello. Look at that. So if anybody's interested in one-to-one, drop me a line, use the contact form on my website. But Regina is a mentoring person. And she actually was described here, Jim. This is relevant to you. At some point, she said she was dreaming. And at some point, I was driving the car and my husband was the passenger. And for periods of time, I couldn't see the road ahead, only a massive download. She was getting just this massive download of black symbols and lots of geometry and shapes and triangles and maths. And there's all this stuff going on. And she woke up in the morning feeling exhausted, basically. And she said, have you, Tim, noticed an uptick in what feels like downloads since you've become a dowser? And the answer is that, Jim, this applies to you as well. As you start dowsing and as you start exploring this path, you are using a part of you that hasn't really been accessed before. It is that, excuse me a minute, I'm blinding myself with this light over here. It is that part that is the intuitive self. And it does connect very deeply into the subconscious because it's your connection to everything that is not tangible, physical. So what happens is that as you develop the dowsing, you will find that you start to experience things differently. Now, this is where it starts to sort of link into spiritual awakening, which again, if you're not careful with a lot of with a fast spiritual awakening, then you can get knocked sideways off your grounded position. Excuse me. So by that, I mean that, you know, we are human beings and we have to remain grounded. And so, Jim, if you're feeling a little bit sort of knocked sideways, a little bit like life is making less sense, or it's so maybe some of the things that you're experiencing are so bizarre that they're kind of making you really question your own framework, your own belief system. We talked about belief earlier, belief system, the framework in which you operate. Then don't be overwhelmed by that. Just accept that those things are possible. It's a process, and what you want to do is just to be aware that this is not unusual, and you're not the first one to have that sort of unsettling time in your life. Dowsing usually is not an unsettling process. It's not anything to be scared of. It's not anything to be to be avoided because it's dangerous. It's in fact the safest, and I've said this a lot, it's the safest way to access any of the subtle realms that there is. But what it does do, and especially now, because we have so many people waking up, and the energies, let's use that word, but the energies around the planet are making it so that so many people wake up, and there is a desire within the population to basically wake up, open the eyes, use the full self. It's about the nature of being human. So the problem is that this sometimes, Jim, becomes quite unusual because it's not the perspective that you're used to viewing your experience of reality from. All right, does that make sense? Let me know how you want to follow that on, Jim, on the chat. I'm hoping that's kind of taken you one step, but you probably want to go another step further. See how that goes. Okay, don't forget, if you want to direct a question specifically to me, put @TimWalter and I can see it very clearly in the chat. So now, I expect that all of you have heard of Bruce Lipton, and if you haven't, please do Google him. Bruce Lipton he was a biologist. He was a cell biologist, and he was he's an amazing guy at communicating some of the depth of significance of one's belief system. So you really should read, apart from anything else, The Biology of Belief. Classic book written some years ago now, but it's reprinted all the time. Pick up a copy of that if you haven't read it already. Jim, not scared at all, just a lot to take in. Thank you very much. Have a good friend. Good. Okay, well, that's great. Okay, so that's very good. There is a lot to take in. A lot of it does rely on practice and confirming results as you go. And if you've got somebody helping you, then they'll help keep you grounded as well. Be grounded, 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 every one of you. Oh, excuse me, all the time. What a girly little squeak that was as well. Right, hello. So, how do you begin to audit? Okay, so amazing, right? Okay, I see what your question is. There you go. Right, okay. Let me come to that one, and then Tammy, I'll come to yours, okay? Oh, okay, Tammy, no, fine. Yeah, great, excellent. I would think, you see, mostly, I mean, all of you are sensitive. It's just degrees of sensitivity. I mean, everybody has sufficient sensitivities to be able to pick up stuff. I have only ever met one person that couldn't get a set of dowsing rods, I'll stick to that, to work. Other people find pendulums sometimes a bit harder going, but I've only ever met one person that couldn't get the rods working, and I tried with him several times. But as far as I'm concerned, everybody can dowse. If you can't, and I think with this guy, He's a lovely, lovely guy. He's really sensitive, but he's also incredibly logical. And I think his logic, he couldn't remove his logical mind from stopping them. Right. So, sorry, Amazed Thing MD responds every time you pick it up. But how do you begin? Whoa, hang on. How do you begin to understand what it's responding to? Well, the key thing is, and I won't labour this because, as I think Billy said, try to watch back some of the other videos in the Dowsing playlist on this channel. The key thing is that actually dowsing is a two-stage process. You ask a question and then you get a response. Without the question, you just don't know what you're dealing with, because a rod will move and give you some interesting, signs, but it's not doing anything for you. You need to ask a question. You need to know to ask, whatever you want to find out about. But don't, please, as you'll see some of those early videos about the basics of dowsing, please don't ask big life-changing questions and just go with the answer that you get. Don't sort of say, should I pack my job in? The rods go yes, and then pack your job in. Don't do that. Get practiced at dowsing first before even contemplating that sort of question. So, Tammy, that's brilliant. And Billy, met an interesting crystal at the weekend. When I tuned in and got close to it, I was repelled with the same physical response like when wrong sides of magnets are held. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That sort of, that kind of chi reaction you can get. Hello, Kathy. See, I can't stop myself from saying hello to people as they join. I'm trying, but it's not working. So, Billy, yeah, you can get that kind of chi reaction. And this is quite an interesting exercise. If you rub your hands together and you just feel that ball of chi between your hands, chi, life force. That's quite an interesting. You can play with that idea, play with that concept, and see how you feel with it. I used to think that it was definitely just that imagined ball of energy, but then you can do that in a group, and you get all sorts of exactly the same responses around the group as things change their resistance. So, I was talking about Bruce Lipton and his book, The Biology of Belief, because belief is absolutely crucial when we're talking about our subjective experience of reality, which is really what this entire channel is about. It's really, in these sessions, as those of you that are regulars will know, it's about me sharing the experience that I've had. I'm not saying this is the way to do things. I'm just sharing the experiences I've had, and hopefully you can gain some information or some kind of way forward for yourselves from that. So now, hopefully you've had a chance to watch the little video that I popped up last Thursday. If you haven't, it talks about belief systems in terms of is witchcraft, is divination associated with dowsing? And what I talk about in that video, I'm not going to talk about it now because there's no point, it's in the other one. Do take a look at it. The fact that witchcraft is perceived by many to be not a good process, not a good belief system. It's had such a bad rap over the years, and I'm not advocating witchcraft. I don't feel that what we do in terms of dowsing and in terms of energy work is aligned with witchcraft. There are certain parameters in witchcraft. You see, I'm talking about that content now. Why do I do this? There are certain parameters involved in the witchcraft that simply are not a part of what we're doing here. But the bottom line is that witchcraft is a belief-based system in the same way as Druidry is a belief-based system, in the same way as, excuse me, this is going to get some unsubscribes, Christianity is a belief-based system. What do I mean by that? I mean that fundamentally any religion is giving you a framework of belief in which to operate. And there are all sorts of moral and varying degrees of spiritual connections and obviously different spiritual energies that one brings into that belief system. Clearly, the spiritual energies associated with Christianity are vastly different from the spiritual energies associated with witchcraft. Belief system, it's like a silo. There's a silo, that's a religion. There's another silo, that's another belief system. Belief system, belief system. Okay, Darlene, I saw you join. Great, good times. Good to see you. Good to see you. I was thinking about you not long ago. Surprise, surprise. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks, Darlene. That's lovely. Thank you very much. Hope you're well and enjoying life. So, okay. Oh no, don't be sorry, amazing MD. Don't be sorry. No, you're doing well. It's good. Just dig out, but just dig out the. Don't run off. Do stay with us. The dowsing, learning to dowse and getting familiar with dowsing. The playlist on the dowsing is the best thing to start with. All about belief, and it's all about assessing in a constant way what you believe in, your belief system. It's a strange phrase, isn't it? Belief system, but it literally just does. It just does mean, as far as I'm concerned, this structure that you live by, that encompasses, that frames your life. You see, Kathy's belief system would be slightly different to mine. Marjorie, same. Yeah, great. Thank you, Marjorie. Well done. I got it. Right. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So when I use the word a focused intent, that is exactly it. It's using our belief, the intention, which is supported by the belief. We believe that we can do something, so therefore our intention is to do something, and therefore focused intent is a way of focusing and harmonizing that so that it actually creates the change that we want in association with upstairs, in association with divine will, always. JF, what's beyond the limits of the system we impose ourselves? Well, it's not so much, hang on, I've got to have a sip of water here. It's not so much, yeah, okay, so what's beyond the limits of the system we impose ourselves? Well, you see, this would be, when we talk about belief systems, it would be like me saying, okay, so like druidry, right? Druidry, the belief in, hang on, just a sec. Sorry, just hang on there a sec. Okay, so when I first came across some druids and met them, I met this lovely couple, and they were explaining for the first time. I had somebody sit down and explain to me what druidry was about. Don't ask me to explain it now, but they explained it to me. And it was a beautiful way of seeing how somebody that cares deeply about the environment can use a moderately established, I must use the words a little carefully, a moderately well established set of parameters to live by. So they were deeply, deeply into day signs, into the signs from the natural world. They would celebrate all of the Celtic holidays. It's every 6 weeks or so. I mean, Hamish was a druid. Hamish Miller, my dear old mentor, was a druid, but he didn't kind of wear it on his sleeve. He attended druid functions and things like this, and indeed his in his garden, well, it's not his garden, it's his land. He had 12 acres of land in southern Britain, in Cornwall, and he had a fabulous stone circle on there that he built that, and they used to, every 6 weeks they would be celebrating the Celtic festivals there. Fantastic, some of those occasions. So JF, what's outside the belief system is actually somebody else's belief system. It's as simple as that. I don't classify myself as a druid. I was raised as a Christian. I mean, that's why I guess I find it very easy to relate to the energies of the archangels and all that. But other religions, belief systems, have their own angelic presence. So JF, I think it's really just where's the boundary? Where's the blurring? And to a certain extent, I think really what you're doing in your work, JF, you're kind of establishing where your belief system is, where are the boundaries to that. Hello, Tom. Nice to see you. Good. Just keep in the grounding. Yep. Having tired day today. Yeah, but that's fine. You're going to get tired days, mate. You're going to get tired days. Everything that you see around you, you believe is around you. And of course, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, so Kinney, Chris, yeah, it's not really off topic. It's great. It's a good question. Thank you. Well, plumbing issues, you see, a lot of this you look at like symbolically. So plumbing issues are about flow. If these are leaks, breakages, or even blockages in the flow, it's all about flow in your life. I don't know whether you live with a partner or have a family or whatever, but it's these sort of things is usually what we find. We find these blockages or these symbols of flow in the reality of the person, so the house healing client, right? So they can be, we would then say, well, they can be due to elementals, due to earth elementals, or water elementals, undines, or they might just be something else. You can douse for it. Have a look at Kinney, Chris, if you look at the playlist, there's a couple of playlists that you can look at on this channel. One of them is Dowsing Geopathic Stress. There's a series of like 3 or 4 videos, but there's also a couple of videos that I made about where I talk, I think if you go to my home page and land on it, if you haven't subscribed, and you land, oh no, okay, so if you've subscribed, land on it, and there's a video there about the geopathic stress, and that includes some sort of indications about how you can work with a floor plan. And then if you look at the other playlist about geopathic stress, you can actually see how the dowsing can evaluate issues. Kinney, Chris, I suspect that the plumbing issue isn't isolated. There'll be other things going on in your life, in your world, that are going to kind of be reflected in that, right? Do Druid follow the Sabbats but call them by other names? There are the 4 solstices and the extra between them make an 8 in all. Yeah, they'll celebrate those. I'm sure of that, Billy. Yeah, I think they do call them something else. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Billy. Thank you for that. That's wonderful. Okay. Yeah, that's fine, Kinney, Chris. Yeah, that's usually what we find. It is really, really interesting that the house environment is the external environment of the people living in it. So, I mean, I was thinking before I came online again, this wall here, the state of this office, we haven't decorated in here or anything, which is why, people moan at me. You've got the pictures just hanging on hooks that were there from the previous owner. Now, is that a very good kind of demonstration of me as a house healer? Well, actually, the room itself feels pretty damn good. And for a healing space, it's amazing. I just haven't got around to doing the practical stuff of redecorating. But this reflects me, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. It's quite like a monk's cell. It's like a recluse living out here in the middle of nowhere. It kind of echoes that aspect of me, but that's okay, but the house is the external environment of the person living within it. And so when we do the house healing, we not only look at the house, we look at the individual living within it. And it's all about, improving the well-being of that individual. That's the whole point. And this is why we also do a consultation after we do a full analysis of 50 or so section headings. We do a one-to-one conversation where we go through what we found. And part of the reason for doing that is not only to pull the energy through into the physical world, but also to help the person shift, move on. It's kind of like a coachy type aspect. Thank you, Tammy. It's going to change one day. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, because to be honest, I mean, let's not get sidetracked too much here. But to be honest, I mean, I like the room. It's great, but you see all the pointing. Don't get me started. All this pointing is sand and cement, which is actually completely the wrong stuff to be used on a wall like this. That's anyway. There you go. Right, where were we? We were talking about belief systems, and we have Nathan with us, and Nathan is great because he doesn't. What's really funny about Nathan, I'm sure he won't mind me saying it's funny. I find it funny because I know that when Nathan sends me a message on Facebook, that it will sit rather nicely with other stuff that's going on in my world. And he's spot on again. He sent me one yesterday. No way, guys, am I picking up anything from Facebook, emails, or anything like that, usually on a Sunday or a weekend. And I know most of you that kind of are in touch, you know, you don't expect a response, but I'm just saying generally, most of my information comes through the PC, so it's office hours. Anyway, so Nathan was saying, look, I have a dodgy knee on and off with a couple of years, and he's had it for a couple of years, but recently it's been more swollen and painful. And he said to himself, he'd try a bit of healing on it, and he went through the motions in his head, protection, earth energies coming in, and using the pendulum over the knee and thinking about it. And after a few minutes, he realized that the pain in his knee had gone. So, and he asked the question, is this how remote distant healing works? And the answer is yes, fundamentally. What he's got there is a fantastic example in his own world about the mind over matter connection. Now, obviously, if he's got a swollen knee and it's giving him pain, I wouldn't suggest that he actually continues just to do healing on it. It would always be advisable to get that sort of thing checked out by a qualified medical practitioner. And actually, both here in the UK and in the USA, intuitives or sensitives are not actually allowed to diagnose specific illnesses. So we cannot, by law, actually suggest to somebody that there's something wrong with them. And I just think that's interesting. But it also falls in line with where I stand, in that we have here and in most countries in the world, we've got a very good, solid mainstream medical practice. There are people with a great deal of knowledge about the way the physiology works. And that alternative medicine, I'm massively into alternative medicine and homeopathy and all of that sort of stuff, because I'm all in favor of doing the most natural possible remedy for an illness. But equally, I don't ignore those standard medical practices. And so, Nathan, I would say to you, really, mate, you should take it to an osteopath and get it checked out. Ideally, take it to a cranial osteopath. That's somebody that actually will work with the subtle energies of your body. So not only will they have the experience and understanding of what's going on with your knee, but they'll be able to work with it. And yes, it's sore again today. So the point is that what you had there yesterday, Nathan, I'm going to call you Keith because that's the name you got there, but Nathan, is that you were given an example, you were given an opportunity to practice that healing with earth energy and experience that shift. Now, the fact that it didn't stay pain-free means that there's something fundamental there that you want to get looked at properly, but the management gave you that opportunity, and that was a penny drop moment for you. So that's terrific. Hang on, Jim, we'll come to you in a sec. So this is one of the things that I urge you all to be looking at, is the way that the things that happen in your life, how do they sit with your belief system? So Nathan's just demonstrated there that he actually took quite a big step forward in his penny drop moment, in that circumstance that was given to him by the management because it existed, and therefore he took action and did that. Now, that was something he hadn't done before. And he was like, oh, look, that's interesting. How does that fit with what Tim talks about? So, okay. Jim, biorhythms of chi affect my ability to douse or the sensitivity. I fell from all around. or the sensitivity of felt from all around you. Yeah, well, I mean, biorhythms are your natural rhythm, rhythms through the body. Let me just yeah, I know, Billy. Yeah. Yeah. Conflict with authority. That doesn't surprise me at all. There, Margie, in Nathan's world, that's possible. So coming back to you, Jim, how does biorhythms? Right. So biorhythms are the natural rhythm of the body. I think they're closely allied, aren't they, to the circadian rhythm, which is the sleep pattern. But it's the basic rhythms of well, you probably know, but for those that don't, the basic rhythms of your body throughout a 24-hour period. You're going to have optimum times where certain things are going to be better to do at that time. I can't give you examples. I'm sure somebody else could. Somebody like Margie there would probably be able to give you an example. And there are other times where the biorhythms are sort of really dipping, and therefore there are things that you don't want to be doing at those times. So how does that affect? Well, the chi. I mean, chi is the kind of life force. Is that really biorhythms? I guess maybe. I mean, what you'll find, Jim, is that actually your chi, your life force, your I was going to say vavavoom, your joie de vie, your all of those things, the essence that is you, the creative spark, all of that stuff will actually start to kind of raise gently in value, if you like. It'll get more to the fore. I'm not sure how you mean. How would it affect your ability to dowse? Because you see, your sensitivity to things around you will continue to increase and develop. How quickly it continues to increase and develop is entirely up to you and how you practice. The more, if you were doing hands-on work with somebody, I don't know whether you're physically close, geographically close to Billy or Tammy, was it? Sorry, I'm not sure which one was helping you. But if you work together, work in a group, then you can practice like sending healing to each other, and that sort of thing really improves your sensitivity to energies. Does it is what I meant. Oh, I see. Does it affect your sensitivity from everything around you? Right. So the biorhythms. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're there are times, I mean, dowsing actually is incredibly tiring. So, when you feel tired, your dowsing is going to be far more likely to go all to pot, the same as any spirit work. You want to be, nice and with it and kind of awake, energized when you do any kind of spirit contact work. Now, when I say spirit contact, I mean, spirit in its loosest sense, because when you're dowsing, you're effectively talking to your higher self. So in that sense, that's spirit work. Okay, so don't get freaked out by that expression. I'm not going to avoid talking about spirits, but that isn't a particular case in point. So Jim, you just need to, if you're finding that you're going through a phase where your dowsing is giving you naff responses, it's not giving you correct responses. It could be because you're tired, or it could be if it continues to continue on, then it could be that you just want to set your dowsing aside for a couple of days or a week and then come back to it again. There's also a phase in most novice dowsers learning where actually they seem to suddenly get all sorts of wrong answers, and that seems to be quite often your higher self saying, right, okay, so you've done the basics, let's take you on to the next level. And then you, at that time where you get these increasingly sort of a jumble of correct answers, is a time to reassess how you do it and how you what's being asked of you in a sense of, or what you're asking of yourself. I don't mean in a dowsing question way. I mean how you're assessing your relationship to your subtle environment. Okay, so as you're on that path of opening up, because that's what you are doing when you're dowsing, everybody is slightly opening their perceptions, then you've got to a point where actually your higher self is saying, okay, now we would like you to think about this a little bit. Let's just encourage you to go along it in this way. It could be the sort of dowsing you're doing. Sometimes people ask me to find things for them. They've lost their keys, or God forbid, I haven't had anybody ask me to find a missing person, but I will usually write back to them and say, well, I can give it a go, but it's not really my area of expertise, because actually everybody can douse, but everybody can write as well. Everybody can pick up a pen and write something. Some people can write, really good novels. Some people can write really good poems. Some people can write really good shopping lists. It's all a different, there's a different kind of focus within the broad heading of writing. It's the same thing with dowsing. There's map dowsing. Some people are really good at that. There are some people are good at locating things. Divination, that's another thing that was talked about in the video that went up on Thursday. Divination, divining the future. Some people are good at that. I'm terrible at that. Well, I'm not that great at it. So that's why I kind of put myself into the spiritual dowsing mode. But some people brilliant at locating things, and those people make fantastic dowsers for oil exploration or whatever, or maybe there's a more environmentally friendly thing to be looking for, but you know what I mean. So in the past they've worked for oil exploration companies and stuff like that, or even for the authorities. So have a think about it all. Right. Excuse me. Yeah, good. There you go. See, Ron, there you go. I've never heard of anybody using 2 CV brake pipes. Excellent. Yeah, doesn't matter what you use to start with. Doesn't matter what you use as dowsing rods at all. And dowsing with your arms or with your fingers, or some people even do it with their eyes, for goodness sake. Divineless dowsing, that's what it's called. And if you want to progress to that, then that's great. You can get really, really good. Okay, so broadly speaking, I don't think we've really talked about fear very much today. We've got 10 minutes or so left. We don't need to dive into fear necessarily, but it was on the title. So I think the thing is that I'd like to return to that initial aspect that we talked about at the start, which is about all of this work, thinking about you stepping into your power, being in control of your choices. And that's really what your power is. It's being in control of your choices, because your entire universe, your entire experience of being alive is really determined by the choices that you make, even to the level of what do I believe in. So again, Nathan there saying things like, hello, unseen world. Dwayne, oh, mate. Nathan there saying these knees give him quite a lot of jip. See, as soon as we say something like that, we say, oh, my knees are really playing up today. Then as soon as we say something like that in self-talk, which I think we'll categorize as negative self-talk, there's a huge amount of power in those words, which is actually is a negative power in that sense, because you're reinforcing the idea that actually your knees are playing up. Now, we all do this, and we all kind of build and reflect our perception of self in the way that we use our self-talk. So I do it a lot. I've become quite absent-minded, in the last couple of years. And I think part of the reason that I seem to be increasingly absent-minded is because I get really annoyed when I realize I've been absent-minded. So my self-talk is, oh, you've done it again, forgotten X, Y, Z. And so therefore that is instilling in my energy field the fact that, oh yeah, I'm probably going to forget all this stuff. We need to be very aware of our self-talk. And actually, you know, if we're going to just take away one simple nugget from today, then really just be mindful, be aware of how you talk about yourself in your own mind and to yourself, you know. Don't beat yourself up, even in jest. Because you see, as Ron says there, words have power, and I mean, literally they do have power, which is why if we go back to focused intent, and I know we jump around all over the place in these lives, but if we take the concept of words having power and you want to actually achieve something with focused intent, okay, so let's use an example of a druid ceremony, then the words of a druid ceremony are quite often said out loud, because it is bringing the power of the words out into the physical dimension where you want the change to appear. So this is why if you are doing some deep or substantial change work on yourself, then you use the power of self-talk, but you use it positively. And ideally you use the self-talk out loud. You say the words, you say the affirmation. I mean, this is the classic thing, you know, dear old Louise Hay, banging on about positive affirmations all the time. And this is why positive affirmations work, not only because it's a powerful self-talk thing, but also because of the actual power in a spiritual sense of the thought being made manifest by the sound energy, the sound waves of the voice. If you want to be really with it, then you sing it. You sing. Yeah, exactly. Chanting. Think about churches and all of that. You know, this is one of the things that Hamish was really strong on, was that the ancient traditions of the Wataha people, in their ceremonial work, they would even sing greetings to each other and sing their place where they felt strongest. They would identify it as being part of them. I was born in so-and-so island or whatever. And they would sing this about themselves. And in ceremony, they would sing the words because it comes from really deep down, right? Really deep down, and is energetically got even more, supposedly, got even more power to it. You won't find me singing anything at all, but there you go. Okay, so remember, if you want to ask a direct question, put at Tim Walter. Couple of minutes and then we'll sign off for the day. This hour has gone really quickly. I hope it hasn't been any more confusing and jumbled mass than I think so, Ron. Yeah, I think so, than usual. We always take a very circuitous and wandering route. It's quite fun. Good, Jim. Excellent. Good. Excellent. Good. That's what we like. That's what we like. So let me just double check. Double check something. Oh, I know. I was going to give a little shout out for an event that my mate Adrian is running. When is that? When is that? He's doing a gathering down in southern England in Wiltshire in April, and I have completely forgotten to make a note of when it is. He's going to love me for that. There you go. 25th and 26th of April, Adrian is running a little weekend event at Lockeridge near Marlborough in Wiltshire. He's got a few speakers. Paul Gerry, who I mentioned earlier on, is going to be there. Very knowledgeable chap, Paul Gerry. I will not be there this year. Hopefully, if they run it again next year, I will be there. But this year, I'm not there. But any event that Adrian runs is always good to attend. So do pop into that. But don't forget also my workshops. 30th, 31st of May, that's advanced intuition. You're developing your intuitive link to everything that is. And in September, I'm doing another one, 19th and 20th, which is more for beginners. So anyway, so in the meantime, we do it here as well, don't we? Okay. So, okay, very good. Lovely. So do pop any comments in. We're going to sign off now. Pop in any comments that you want answers to, any questions that you've got. It's always really, really, really useful if we've got some information before the Monday. It saves me panicking. But yeah, thanks. Okay, any last questions? Come on, any last questions, and I'll quickly do one or two. Cheers, Nathan. Take care, mate. Okay, very good, JF. Always a pleasure. Over there in Canada. Hope you're well, no. Why would I hope you're snowed in? I hope you're not snowed in. All right, guys. Any last questions? I'll just wait. So, okay. All right. Gonna go now. So take care, and we'll see you next week. Bye all. Thanks. Cheers. Bye.